Imagine a teenager who scores perfectly on every exam. They follow every rule, get into a top-tier university, and secure the right internships. But the moment they face a complex moral dilemma or a deep personal loss, they fall apart. They have the vocabulary to pass advanced biology, but they are strangers to their own internal weather. We have built an entire culture around measuring compliance and intelligence. We track grades and test scores with obsessive precision, while leaving the development of actual wisdom almost entirely to chance. This is a system of credential assembly. It operates on the assumption that if a student is obedient enough to collect the right degrees, they are ready for the world. But life does not arrive in the form of a multiple-choice test. A child who has only been trained to follow instructions remains structurally unprepared for any situation that doesn't come with a manual. The modern classroom was designed over a century ago for an era that no longer exists. The strict bell schedules, the standardized tests, and these rows of heavy wooden desks all served a specific economic purpose. The industrial economy required highly disciplined workers for factories and standardized bureaucrats for massive government offices. Schools were built to mimic this environment, training children to accept their place in a hierarchy and follow rigid, repetitive procedures without question. That economy has been replaced by a reality defined by climate feedback loops, autonomous technologies, and global interdependence. These are not problems that can be solved through rote repetition or following the directions on the board. When a system prioritizes raw intelligence over moral discernment, it creates a specific kind of danger. It produces engineers capable of designing addictive algorithms or high-frequency trading platforms, but who lack the ethical training to ask if those things should exist. To navigate the future, we need sovereign humans, not just brilliant specialists. This development does not begin with global policy reform. It begins at the kitchen table, through the friction of daily habits. The shift starts by replacing authoritarian commands with the why conversation. Instead of telling a child, do this, you ask them why they think a certain choice is right. This forces the child to exercise their own independent reasoning, moving the burden from your authority to their own discernment. This chart shows the impact of what psychologists call desirable difficulty. The flat line represents a child whose parents constantly swoop in to rescue them from frustration. The rising curve is what happens when a child is allowed to wrestle with a manageable challenge. That struggle is the exact mechanism that builds problem-solving capacity. There is a clear boundary here between productive struggle and harmful suffering. Your role isn't to provide a rescue operation, it's to provide an emotional safety net. You sit with them in the discomfort and help them regulate their emotions until they find their own way through. Children biologically absorb the emotional baseline of the adults around them through mirror neurons. These specialized brain cells allow a child to imitate behavior automatically, which means they are constantly recording how you handle stress, disagreements, and failure. If you lecture about staying calm, but react with anger to a minor setback, the child will reflect the anger, not the lecture. Your own self-regulation is the most important part of the curriculum. If you take a child raised with this level of independent reasoning and drop them into a traditional industrial classroom, they will likely see the sorting machine for what it is. They will struggle to find meaning in tasks designed only for compliance. This friction is why we need regenerative education. It's a model that takes personal sovereignty and scales it up to community stewardship. Finland provides a working example. Their schools rely on trust and mandate frequent outdoor play, recognizing that physical movement regulates the nervous system. You cannot force a stressed, sedentary brain to engage with complex cognitive problems. In Japan, the practice of soji involves students cleaning their own classrooms and serving each other lunch. This isn't about saving money on janitors. It is a curriculum for collective responsibility. It teaches no task is beneath you. High academic standards and moral development are not mutually exclusive. Singapore leads the world in subjects like advanced genetics, training students in the technical mechanics of tools like CRISPR. But that technical mastery is paired with mandatory ethical debates. The students who learn to edit the genome are equally required to grapple with the moral consequences of doing so. These schools produce integrated stewards, individuals who understand the science, the human impact, and the responsibility that comes with both. The goal of education should be the development of a whole person, someone who balances intellectual truth with an appreciation for beauty and a commitment to goodness. This requires shifting the core question of a child's life. We have to move them away from asking, "How can I outcompete my peers?" and toward asking, "What am I responsible for?" One day, your child will be an adult standing alone. They will eventually face a life-defining crisis where a high school GPA and a parent's advice will no longer be enough to save them. In that moment, they will rely entirely on the emotional strength and the thinking patterns established during their childhood. Rebuilding the way we live and learn is a massive undertaking, but it starts with the smallest possible unit, the conversation you choose to have with your child at the kitchen table tomorrow morning.